What's up, everybody? A lot of people thinking about moving to the DMV, whether it's to work in DC or they want a different lifestyle, but they don't necessarily want to live in the city, are trying to decide between Maryland or Virginia. I could go on and on about how great it is to live in either one, but today, I'm not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go through the worst things about living in Northern Virginia. Don't get me wrong, Virginia is a beautiful state and there are many great reasons to live here, but there are cons to every state. So today, we're going to go through them. So if you decide to live in Northern Virginia, you know what you're in for. So let's dive right in. Okay, so the first con that you have to know about living in Northern Virginia is that it is really, really expensive. According to GoBankingRate.com, for 2024, Virginia has the highest concentration of wealthy counties in it. In fact, 3 out of the top 10 wealthiest counties in the whole country are located in Northern Virginia. Falls Church, Virginia ranked 4th with an average household income of $209,659 and a typical home value of $1,158,483. Loudoun County, Virginia ranked 5th with an average household income of $201,590 and typical home value of $789,961. And Fairfax County, Virginia ranked 8th with an average household income of $185,205 and typical home value of $792,293. Also, Arlington County, Virginia ranked 13th with an average household income of $180,199 and a typical home value of $1,015,431. And all of this data is taken from GoBankingRates.com. So just how much does it cost to live in Northern Virginia? Because when you look at the whole state of Virginia, it doesn't look that bad. If you look at this chart from bestplaces.net on the state of Virginia compared to the United States, they give it a 104.2 index compared to the US average of 100. That's for the whole state of Virginia. But then let's look at Northern Virginia. It's very different than the entire state. Here's another chart from bestplace.net that looks at Falls Church, Virginia, which is right across the border from Washington, D.C. They gave Falls Church an index of 177 compared to the US average of 100 and the whole state of Virginia at 104.2. And the biggest culprit, which is my specialty, is housing. Every other category is not too bad. Sure, transportation is expensive and groceries can cost more than other states, but look at housing. Housing got a 239.2 index compared to the US average of 100. Here's something interesting. Bestplace.net's median home cost for Falls Church, Virginia is $851,000, a lot less than GoBankingRates.com of $1,158,483. So let's check it out. If I do a quick search on our local MLS for active and pending listings in Falls Church, Virginia, so they're all very current, here's what we get. They start at $1,339,000 and go up to $2,475,000. This is all for October of 2024. Now let's try active single-family homes in Loudoun County. The most expensive is $11,500,000 and the least expensive is $670,000. So I think you get the gist of it. Northern Virginia is very, very expensive when it comes to housing. And our markets, they really haven't changed that much. We still have very limited inventory right now in the fall of 2024. We'll see what happens in the next few months, but right now, for good houses that are priced right, it's still very expensive and very competitive. It's just important for you to know that. And since we're talking about money, let's talk about Virginia's car tax, which you gotta pay every year. Virginia is a personal property tax state, where owners of vehicles and lease vehicles are subject to an annual tax based on the assessed value of the vehicle as of January 1st. The tax rate can change depending on which county you live in. This goes for cars, motorcycles, trucks, boats, campers, mobile homes, trailers, and aircraft. This can go up or down depending on the value of your car each year. Let's look at Loudoun County as an example. The current tax rate for most vehicles in Loudoun County is $4.15 per $100 of assessed value. For qualified personal use vehicles, the tax bill is reduced by the Commonwealth's Personal Property Tax Relief Percentage, or PPTR, which is also set by the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors annually. The current percentage of personal property tax relief is 28%, and it's provided only on the first $20,000 of the assessed value. So I don't know about you guys, but I actually understand things better when I can see some numbers. So we're going to go through two examples. One for a car assessed for less than $20,000 and one for a car assessed for more than $20,000. So you can kind of see the math and how much it would cost. So if your car is assessed at $8,000, they apply the $4.15 tax rate. So $4.15 divided by 100 times 8,000, which equals $332. Then you calculate the personal property relief. 28% for 2024 times 332 equals $92.96. You then reduce the tax by the relief amount. So $332 minus $92.96 equals $239.04. That doesn't sound so bad, but let's continue. If your car is assessed at $30,000, which quite honestly, I lease my cars every 3 years, so they're going to be assessed at a much higher price because they're new every 3 years. So if your car is assessed at $30,000, they apply the $4.15 tax rate. So $4.15 divided by 100 times 30,000 equals $1,245. Then you calculate the personal property relief of the first $20,000. So $4.15 divided by 100 times 20,000 times 28% for 2024 equals $232.40. You reduce the tax by the amount of relief, so $1,245 minus $232.40 equals $1,012.60. And this is every year. This is a true story. I had a client move to Northern Virginia in 2019. He already hated that car tax, but he decided that he could deal with it as once a year. But then he got super angry when his car tax went way up during the pandemic. Remember back then there was a shortage of cars, both used and new? Well, all of their values went up. So if his car values went up, then his car tax went up. His annual car tax went up so much between 2019 and 2022, he decided to leave Northern Virginia. Now mind you, full disclosure, it wasn't just about his car. He had 2 kids that each had a car, and his wife had a car. So he had to pay this annual car tax on 4 cars, and it really adds up. And like I said, it never goes away. The other thing that's really expensive about living in Northern Virginia is the toll roads. You gotta pay tolls if you wanna get into DC, if you wanna go into Maryland. You even have to pay tolls if you wanna go from one place in Virginia to another place in Virginia. There are so many toll roads in Northern Virginia, and they really add up because the prices change according to demand and volume of traffic. In fact, Virginia itself has 10 toll road facilities, and 5 of them are in Northern Virginia. It can cost up to $20 just commuting back and forth to DC for work, depending on what time of day you go to and from work. And if you have to commute several times a day, like I do, those tolls can really add up. So you can see why it can be really expensive. Now, there are many great jobs in Virginia. Amazon's here now, got a lot of different businesses in Virginia. So maybe if you move here and you work in one of these great jobs, you can afford to have this high cost of living. But it's just something that you need to know before choosing to live in Northern Virginia. Next up is traffic. Besides dealing with those pesky tolls, you also have to deal with very congested traffic. According to our local news channel here, Northern Virginia is home to the single worst traffic hotspot in the entire country, which is a stretch of southbound Interstate 95 from the Fairfax County Parkway to Fredericksburg. And if you're commuting into Washington, D.C., you not only have to deal with those pesky tolls, but you also have to cross a bridge to get into the city, which can really stall things. There's just no way around it. And if there's an accident or some sort of weather delay, you can literally sit in your car for hours. Add some construction, which is joyfully going on right now, and it can take even longer. Traffic is just really bad here, and your commute can take a really long time depending on what time you go to and from work. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I get a lot of people moving here to work in DC, but they don't want to live in DC, so they're trying to decide between Maryland and Virginia. And while some of the neighborhoods in Northern Virginia are shorter as far as distance, they take longer to get there as far as your commute. There's just only so many ways you can get into the city from Northern Virginia. Over in Maryland, you got a lot more options about how to get into DC, so that may be something to consider. And don't forget about parking. Parking is terrible here in Northern Virginia. Those meter cops, they're omnipresent. So just be mindful of your meter if you can get street parking. Most likely, you end up parking in one of those parking garages, but they also can be expensive, so just keep that in mind. If you are new to my channel, my name is Caryn Gardiner. I am a local real estate agent here in the DMV, specializing in Montgomery County, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. If you are thinking about moving here, click the link in the pinned comment and we can set up a Zoom call so we can get you started. We talk about everything DMV related on this channel, so if that is of interest to you, definitely subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. The next reason you may want to avoid Northern Virginia has to do with the weather. It gets super hot here and super humid. It is not unusual at all for the weather to be in the mid-90s, but it feels like 104 or 110, and you know what? It really does. It's just that humid, and the air quality, it's just really tough. So just be mindful of that. As far as the winters, we do get some snow here. We got a lot more when I was growing up as a child, but we'll still get maybe 1 or 2 snowstorms a year. Thing is, it's a lot of fun for those small kids. But as far as school closings, if the schools think it's gonna snow, even if it hasn't already snowed yet, they tend to either delay opening, close early, or cancel school altogether. So if you're coming here from a cold state, you're gonna be very surprised at how sensitive Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Montgomery County, Maryland are to bad winter weather. And one more thing to be mindful with the weather is allergies. Our allergies can get pretty bad here in the spring, especially pollen. It's not unusual for you to go and see all those cars parked on the streets covered with that green pollen on them. So if you are sensitive to allergies, just be mindful before you move here that they can get pretty bad in the spring going into summer, especially for pollen. If you can't tell by now, I'm not a real big fan of the summers here. I probably mentioned it in a lot of my videos because to me it's really bad. Now everybody's different, but I personally, I'm not a big fan of the humidity. I'm not a big fan of the heat. So what I do, and a lot of my friends do, is we head to the beaches in the summer. There's beaches in Maryland. I prefer actually the beaches in Delaware, Rehoboth Beach. And that's how we kind of get out of the city, out of the heat, and go to the beach. So if you are moving here, consider that. Just a few more things and then we're gonna wrap this up. I do have to mention the competition because like the rest of the DMV, Northern Virginia does suffer from highly competitive people and highly sought after jobs. With Amazon now based in Northern Virginia, it just seems like everybody wants to move here and work here, and that's great. But it is something to notice because it's not as easy as it seems. There's just a lot of very highly qualified people already living here, so just be mindful of that if you are moving here for that reason. It just can be really difficult. This goes for colleges as well. Virginia has some amazing state universities, and it is pretty impressive, but they are very hard to get into. I have a friend whose daughter was in a very gifted high school. She got nearly perfect score on her SATs, and she still didn't get into University of Virginia. There's just a lot of people in this state that want to go to all these state schools. So the good news is you got a really wide range of schools to choose from. The bad news is it's still highly competitive. And finally, we've got to talk about deer and ticks. We have a lot of deer here in Northern Virginia, and with that deer comes ticks, and with ticks comes tick-borne diseases. In fact, according to a new study by PestNome for 2024, Virginia ranks number 12 for tick-borne disease cases. Lyme disease is the most commonly reported tick-borne disease in the state, but residents are also at risk of Rocky Mountain spotted fever. The worst months for ticks are during spring and summer, but the winters here in Virginia are not that cold. They usually get into the mid-20s. So these ticks, they don't die. Rather, they go dormant and inactive. So just be prepared, because here in Northern Virginia, you have amazing hikes and trails and paths, and I don't want you to miss any of it. So just be prepared. Dress appropriately or spray yourself with something. Just know that there are a lot of deer here, and with those deer come those ticks. I hope you got some value out of today's video. Like I said, there are pros and cons to every state, but these are the cons of living in Northern Virginia. If you did get some value and now you want to see how Northern Virginia compares to Maryland, check out this video next. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Bye!